Hi, Starr. Welcome to Esoteric Disclosure. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So, we at Esoteric Disclosure have been running a series of videos with Tony Rodriguez and diving quite deep with Tony Rodriguez into his 20 years and back in the secret space program and much more, right? And I think from the way that you and I got into contact with each other was a comment through one of those videos that you'd made a comment on, that Tony had sort of given you a lot of information, or you'd got a lot from his videos, right? You'd watched a lot of his videos and you'd got a lot from him. Am I right?
He's a good man. Yeah, in 2016, we became friends on Facebook, and there were different groups that he would speak and taught us how to get our memories back
Sure.
in a nice tactical way. So I appreciated the way you guys interviewed him. Very good video. And yeah, I've been following him quite a while on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.
Sure, good. Okay, so this is just for everybody that's watching Esoteric Disclosure sort of viewers. This is the first time that Starr and I have really spoken. We've been speaking now on sort of Facebook, backwards and forwards, just trying to really get some time together to be able to do this interview. So what we're going to try and do then, Starr, is let's just let you roll in, right? So I've read all the things that you've sent to me, and you've obviously read some of my passages, and you've watched some of my videos about the journey that I went on, and I just really want you to. I know you sort of got from what you said to me a sort of an order that you want to go through things and start disclosing information out to the public. So let's just let you start from the top, really. And I mean, how did this all start for you, and where did you start getting your memories back? And maybe just bring me in from the beginning, man, and let's start.
Wow. That's a question I didn't expect. And this is probably okay. So I'll just answer you straight up. One day, normal day, I'm walking back home. At the time, my wife and we haven't moved into an apartment yet, but we still live down the block from each other. I give her a kiss, good night, kiss my son goodnight, and I walk down the street, and all of a sudden, I see my body walking down the street on the next corner, and I feel like I'm dying. I see my skin going transparent. I know this sounds crazy, but hear me out. A craft comes, and I am controlled and manipulated by 3 ETs. They were blues. They were not grays. They had more of a bluish kind of appearance.
Were they bird-like features?
Not the avians. They weren't not the bird-like. They were about my height, had like 5'6", had collared shirts, but they didn't get too close to me. Close enough to where I could see very well what their features looked like. 3 fingers, webbed fingers, by the way. And I panicked. As a matter of fact, I was told to relax.
Through telepathy.
Yes, and I did not, and I was resisting, and I felt like, first of all, I was getting weak, paralysis, still trying to crawl, but at the same time, I felt pain inflicted on me, as if I was getting beat up by a group of people, or getting hit by a car, whatever the case.
Mm-hmm. So was this mentally being beaten up? So you were feeling mentally, internally, or was it physically?
Physically, I I felt physical pain that I've only really experienced in my last motorcycle accident. I felt the burning of skin. I felt breaking of bones. But to make it, quick and get into the what really happened, when I finally submitted, at that point I was broken. I was not able to move. I was just able to look. And there were 3 of the blue ETs, and one of them came close to me. He took his hand. I'll never forget the way his hand looked. It was, the 3 fingers, but they were webbed. And he just put his hand close enough to, my facial structure, or the occipitalis region, and he just went like that. And my vision went upside down. Like, the sky was where my feet were, completely upside down.
Okay.
After that had happened, I have been taken on the craft. It was very hard to make out with my vision being upside down and kind of blurry. It was hard to make out what was done to me on the craft. I remember the fluorescent lights. I remember just weird noises. But what really was a quick experience was a body scan that felt as if I was levitating, and I saw this ray of light. Even with the reverse vision, it felt like a fan, like if you a high pressurized fan just went from my feet to the top of my head, and from the top of my head down. There was a little bit of warmth to the feeling. After that scan, I had been placed back, and I was in a parallel. I was not back in, on the street that this happened yet. I was in a parallel, in a desert. And I remember my vision was turned back to normal.
Yep.
It was not upside down. The ET came, did the same thing, turned my vision back to normal. I saw them, the 3 of them, go back in the ship. It was more of a triangular ship. It was not, your typical circular ship.
Triangular, right, 3 bright lights at the bottom, triangular shape, black.
Yes, black. Wow, like a jet black.
Yeah.
So
The
yes.
reason we'll do that is we'll reference, because we know we've heard of those type of ships before. So through the video we'll reference, and we'll have images flick up of the different things that you're referencing. So can I just to pull it back, and just straight away, we've just dived straight in, Star, yeah, and it's great that we've dived straight in, and this is what we want, right? This is what Esoteric Disclosure is all about. Right?
I didn't expect it, but
No,
yes,
but that's what we do, dude. And this is the point: is that the point of the channel, and what you got from when you watched the video with Tony is, and you'll get this from me, is that it's not about you just splurting information, right? It's about pinpointing specifics that have happened to you, and utilizing that to give disclosure to people that we're waking up through the channel, right? And the videos have been run in a series, and by the time we get to this video, there would have been Kundalini releases, there would have been my story releases, there would have been Tony's story releases, and it brings people to a pinnacle point where the information that you're going to disclose for these people, they're going to be able to actually absorb, right? Because for me, I'm okay, like, it's fine, I believe, right? So
what I'm going to do is, see, I live right by Montauk and Brookhaven. I live right beneath my feet as I speak right now is Brookhaven Lab. Like, there's an underground base beneath me right now. There's solar farms, there's a military airport base. Like, I'm in the same area where Operation Paperclip first started. There's a street that they had to change the name. It was Adolph Road in Yaphank. So I'm gonna get back into
That's what I was going to come to. I was
yeah,
going to come
my
to
childhood.
Yeah. And where I just wanted to go before we do that, and what's interesting is that when that happened, when this first exposure happened to these blue aliens, where was this? Where were you at this time? Are you able to disclose that to us?
Absolutely. Do I really want to give the name of the street?
No, just give me the area, dude. Don't give me the name of the street, just the area. That's fine.
Okay. I'm in Brookhaven town. I'm off Mauritius Middle Island Road, which is a main road, and I'm on one of the side streets. And that side street, there were 3 side streets. One started with a C, one started with a B, one started with an A. Then there were some convenience stores.
This is not where you are now, though, right? This was then.
Yes.
That's fine. Okay, go.
So, you know, we lived very close. A walk from my house to my wife's house at the time was only a 5-minute walk. I barely made it down the block until this just happened. At the time, no drugs, no, like, I lit up a cigarette, no alcohol, no, like, no mental illness. Yeah. Just so random, straight out of the blue. And now what really kicked off a lot of memories from this experience was what felt like months in this desert that they left me, because I continued screaming for help, but no words were coming out of my mouth. Eventually, a man, it didn't even feel like I was on this planet, but a man, he did not look like a human. He looked humanoid, but he was scaly. He said in a very raspy, like a thunderous voice, he asked me how I got there. I was panicking, and he just touched my forehead, and I ended up in one of the neighbors' driveways, sitting perfectly against the car. Now, with all the freaking out I was doing, and like nobody heard, and I'm just like sitting in a stranger's driveway, perfectly leaned up against their vehicle. So when I walked home that night, I had realized a lot of childhood memories that made this very realistic to me. Because as a child and I think a lot of these memories were erased, but I remember vividly sleeping on the hallway. This is when I lived in Yaphank. Yaphank is a town that the Germans were here before World War II. My poppy lived through to experience and tell me Operation Paperclip. The Germans were here before World War II even started. They created Brookhaven Lab. They took over the Air Force Base, Camp Hero in Montauk. They created, they experimented with parallel time and a lot of that, but those would need to be aware of the technology, the Delta T antenna, the parallel time, to understand how these experiments.
Delta T antenna is the antennas that communicate with the other alien species, with other planets, right? And that have been around for some time. Yeah.
That would be the radar. That would be the radar on Camp Hero. But a Delta T antenna actually is it was an invention by Nikola Tesla. It's a pyramid on top of an upside down pyramid. So it looks like a diamond shape, and it's different coils, specifically male and female. I'm not a scientist, but if you look up a delta T antenna, it'll explain scientifically.
I've done some research, and we'll be displaying some of the research about this on. We're looking into it right now, and maybe you and I can talk later, and we can share information that we'll be able to disclose to people. Yeah, to really drill into it, right?
Yes. So I'm just saying this so the viewers could understand that the Delta T antennas are on top of school buildings here. There's technology all over the place here that opens up parallel universes. But I kind of jumped into that. I apologize. As a child, I always slept in the hallway. And I slept on my stomach with my sneakers on, ready to run. And I remember vividly 2 experiences. And, I told everybody, nobody believes me. Thought the typical, a child having a bad dream. But a portal would open up in my ceiling, and it would be, if you went into a dark basement and can't see your hand in front of your face, the darkness was like 1,000 times beyond that. So this portal of darkness was just, you could see it, and instantly paralysis, screams would turn into air, and I get pulled into this portal, if you will, ending up in a spacecraft with other children. That's why I always slept on the hallway. I felt, well, they can't get me if I sleep on the hallway, and what they do is, it's so funny. I wake up to go to the bathroom, and they put the portal up in the bathroom, and yes, no matter how hard
that doesn't matter where you are, they can still open the portal, right? But obviously, as a child, it's that thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But that's when it started.
So in the ships with the children, talk to me about that.
Well, they had a lot of these, I don't want to say helmets, but it was like something that's put on the head with a lot of wires running through it, and gloves that they would put on the hands with lots of wires running through it, and a couple of EKG
monitored,
monitoring the heart.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand at the time, but I understand now. As a child, I'm still very experienced in this area, but remote viewing, psychic abilities, and a lot of these children were almost like in a sleep state with this gear on them. And I remember I would sit down in a chair, they would put the stuff on me, and they'd have a human come to me. There were other ETs on the ship, but the human would make me feel comfortable. He would make me feel like everything's okay. He would put me into hypnosis, and then, however the technology works, of these helmets, whatever they are, what they put on the head to use your psychic abilities, that was the beginning. I guess it was a testing phase to see who has the best psychic abilities, who can be used for this project.
I think it's whether you're alpha or delta or something they test for, don't they?
Yes, because after that, there was nothing fun or comforting about it. in fact, very sickening and evil. As Tony said in his videos, they would also use the sleep deprivation gases on us. They would use other gases on us too that we did not know about, but they'd specifically make us do the oddest things. They would have us stand on like a curb. They'd put cinder blocks up in the base, and we'd have to stand up, and whoever fell down would be burned. There was like a chemical on the floor, so we'd be awake for days and days, and just some of these things, they get so graphic. I'd rather not explain. But
it's on you, man. It's on you. You tell us what you want to tell us.
I have to explain this way people understand. And a lot of people that claim to be super soldiers have not yet came to peace with this trauma, or may have not remembered it yet, or simply just put it aside because it's traumatizing. But
I think as well there is the technology to be able to make it so that you can't remember it, and that's this whole period of time after the period of time when it happened in the trauma, where you actually those memories are suppressed from you, and there is technology that enables them to suppress those memories, right? And those are the two different things. And there are triggers. There are triggers that happen that will bring those memories back. I actually said this to Tony. Have you ever done any regression?
Yes, I've done many regressions. Some of them
help?
Yes, some of them were very painful, and it took a while of healing. Over time, it helped. Doesn't help right away, but it does help in time.
Mm-hmm. So just to give, sorry to interrupt. So just what we're going to do, just so that we can bring everything back. So what happened in that little short section that we just discussed was that you went from your house when you was young through a portal that you said you were in a ship, and then you took us to a base, right? So to give a little bit of clarity, so people can look back at what we said, just to understand sort of that process, right? So you got physically pulled through that portal. Now the question I've got for you at that point is, do you feel as though look, you and I are quite spiritual, and we understand that the light body can be charged and removed as your consciousness, your soul, from your carcass, and then you will become a presence of yourself, right? That's outside of your body. So there's obviously that. Now with Tony, when we discuss this, and I'll reference Tony just because it's relevant, right? And what we understood with Tony is they extracted his consciousness and told him they were going to borrow it, and left him on a base, and then took him away, right? So what I want to understand here is, do you feel at the point when you were at this child in the hallway and the portals were opening that they were physically taking you as a physical person, or were they taking your soul and they were removing your consciousness, and then your consciousness was being replaced into another body? So explain to us that.
This is what they did. From the ages of 4 to maybe about 8 or 9, it was all the presence, the physical body. They were training us. They were doing brutal things to us first before they took our consciousness and our light body, and we were then kept in whatever tubes or whatever you want to call it. But they trained us first.
Okay, so we're saying they physically removed you as a person into that portal, onto that ship, and you were physically there with other children, right? And then that ship then took you and those other children to a base. That's what we're saying now. Now, do you recall, let's just to reference a few points, do you recall being in the ship and your surroundings inside you whilst you were in that ship? Do you recall that first? Maybe you could just give us a quick synopsis of what you saw inside that ship, and just anything that you can draw from.
Looking straight forward from the desk, there would be a desk, and you look straight forward and you see a row of chairs. Then there's one room to the right and there's another room to the left. Both of them are like medical rooms. There's gurneys or like tables and surgical equipment. When I would be seated in the chair, looking to the left, I would see the opening to the door where I came in from. Looking to the right, there wouldn't be any door. There were no windows, and it was very small. Very, even for a kid, it was pretty small. But forward, I guess where the pilots or however this ship was driven, I did not see past. Yes. Well, would you call would a UFO have a cockpit? I mean, they can use conscious transportation, right? Like just. I don't know. I apologize.
No. The point is that the reference to a cockpit is the fact that you said that there was a. So look, I'm an engineer, right? So there's a bulkhead, right? So there's a point, and there's a place where you can't see past. There's a door. You can't see those people.
That's what I couldn't see, and I never got
consciousness to whatever. Sure, I get it. That's cool. And we'll only reference cockpit because that's what everyone knows in a plane, right? Okay, fine. So good. So do you remember the feeling whilst being? So what we understand by anti-gravity crafts and that is that you don't actually feel movement whilst you're in those crafts. It's like you're stationary, but it's moving at a very high speed, right? So there's no real. You didn't really feel any shift, change, directional change. Everything was just like as though you was in a room and completely still whilst traveling in those ships, right?
Yes. In my earlier experiences, when I couldn't see around me, yes, I felt like as if I was sitting on my bed right now.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
I know you've got. I can tell, Star, that. Like we said this was going to be done in chunks, and there's a lot, right? I can already tell there's a lot. So
don't want to make it difficult.
So with that, what we're going to say is that this happened, and you've just given me a timeline between 4 and 8. So there's multiple times that you were removed from your house physically into a ship and transported to a base, and at that point.
Well, to be honest with you, it was every single night. The only memories I have is when they fucked up with their time and they bring me back in the parallel too soon, and I would, I wasn't supposed to see what I saw. It was on their mistakes. But after the ages of 4. I would say 4.5, 5 through 8. Now I'm having now they're using my consciousness.
We need to wait. Before we go on, we need to cover this section first. We need to cover the 4 to 8 section. So you've given me a basic synopsis of it.
Okay. Yes.
And what I want to do is I want to drill right into that, and then I want to understand. There's some questions I have for you. So. When you got to the base, you told me there was a human that would come and settle you. Now, what I'm interested to understand is the other races of people that were there. Were they small greys?
Yes, there were greys there.
And then, wait, small greys, and then
very
And then
Yes.
and then one or two maybe larger greys, bigger greys that would only come in occasionally. They would not be there the whole time.
I didn't see taller greys. I saw one draconian that was kind of in charge of everything.
Sure.
The greys were they were always very rare.
You know they're androids. The small greys are androids. You know this.
I wasn't aware. Wow.
Yeah. So what happens is the larger greys, the larger greys, and there are various different types of greys, right? The larger greys use those smaller drone type, and if you recall, if you think back, Star, their movements and actions were, I would imagine, not very fluid in the way that they would work with you and work on you and work around you. They were more robotic than they were fluid.
Yeah. No emotions at all. Just
that's the reason, right? Is that they're controlled by the larger greys. So the larger greys are the teacher type and the overseers in this, from my understanding, the overseers in this process that the Draconians are taking these people through. So the Draconians and the Nazis, the Second Reich at this time, those are completely and utterly linked. And that goes back to the Vril Society and the channeling and how they got the technology for the bell, right? All of this technology that they got. So this is the program that they own and they contain, right? So the Draconians sit at the top of that. They sit at the top of that space, and the Greys are assisting this experiment, right? And they're the scientists.
I didn't see the taller Greys until later on.
Cool.
Later on, there was like a bigger mothership, if you will, before they were stationed, and we knew why we were there, what we were doing, and etc. But
cool. So sorry to keep going, but so you're now in this space, and we've got this between 4 and 8 now, and you're taken there every night. Just talk us, and I understand that it might be a bit distressing for you what they've done, right?
I'm at peace with it now.
Okay, so then let's try and go as deep as you can to the experiments they've done. I mean, you mentioned they use gas, and from my understanding, what they do is to be able to understand whether or not you have the ability to be able to remote view and use your telepathic powers. They have to bring you close to death. And at that point, just before death, is when they can check and see your real ability.
It's true, but to me, it's like an understatement because they would constantly kill and revive. But
thank you.
Yeah.
This is what I want from you now. And I can tell you want to go on once they take your consciousness, right? And we're going to do that. But that's just do this 4 to 8.
Yeah, I think that's a great plan. To speak on the ages of 4 through 8 now. Because there's a lot of information here.
I think there is. And one thing, and I'm going to let you go now. And this is what you said to me when you watched my video. You're like, dude, let this guy talk. But this is the reason I do it, right?
Yes.
The reason I do it is because we've got to get the information that we want to give to Esoteric Disclosure viewers. And it isn't just tell us everything. It's getting information and getting it right so that we can deliver it properly, right? So, just tell us, man. Just to go in and just try and bring back those horrific things that they tried to do to you, and try and explain to us and from this, what we'll be able to do is understand the reason why they done it, right? And that's the big thing for me. So I'm going to be quiet, roll a cigarette. I'm going to let you go, okay?
Sure. Well, I'll just jump straight into it. First, what they do is fracture the mind. We all know this, but they would do it in sicker ways that they've done it in the past. I mean, this was 94. This was 95 through 97. So they would rape the children. They would drown them in these buckets of urine and body fluids and blood, and it was very safe.
What?
Yes,
Jesus.
yes.
Man. Okay, go.
I'm not. I swear.
No, listen. I'm not saying you're not telling the truth. You're going to get shocked from me, and there are some things that will shock me, dude. Yeah, and to say you're going to drown somebody in fucking blood, that's going to shock me, dude. But go on.
Blow torches were used. Burning. Skin burning was used. Strengthening tactics, as in slow, like beating someone to death is one thing, but to starve someone and go between freezing them to almost dehydrating them to death, then beating them but not to death, and then drowning them but not to death, and see how long they had survived, like stuff like that. They've done some sick things.
Don't hold back. Don't hold back, dude. But by the statement, they've done some sick things means that in your head you can see what they did, but you don't want. You feel like it's so sick you don't want to say it, dude. But
yes, I do. But I'll go on and say it. And I mean, we've seen conjurations of demons materializing physically, because the fear of a child is very important to
Draconians.
Yes.
I know. They're the ones they like to eat the most, right? And they're the most scared.
They prefer like babies. But yes, they eat children. They eat all humans. They love the blood. I never understood that. But
that's because they're reptiles. They're carnivorous reptiles.
Yes. But yeah, they would summon demons. It would be different every time, a different experience every time. It felt like every single time someone would be sacrificed. But oddly, they had a way of bringing it back. Like the same kid I'd see die, why is he still in the picture in my mind? So I'm thinking, perhaps I have experiences where I've been attacked and killed by these strange demonic entities, and what fucks up is the experiences, or let's say experiments that they do on us, sometimes doesn't just stay in that base. We'll have something that, before they take our consciousness, we'll have something that actually happens physically that's very similar. Which I could speak on, experiences of demonic attacks, psychic attacks, but
let's roll back and let's talk about. So what you said, that's home in on this a few things. So let's first talk about the experiments around drowning you in these different fluids and how that happened to you, your memories of that. So what you're basically saying is they're taking you to a point of death and bringing you back. Now
Go. I apologize. I'll give you an example. They use propane on me, right? And this is just an example of one of their fuck-ups. They use propane on me to kill me, and even though I remember this clearly happening in that parallel in that time, I still remember myself at the same age, 5 years old. I mean, 6 years old. No, 6 years old, in the backyard. I saw a propane tank, and for some reason, I thought it was a water nozzle. And I opened it up, and what do you know? I I almost died physically because of a fuck up between parallels. They're using an old system. Now they have CERN and these quantum computers. Back then they were using this old system of delta T antennas and the parallel universes. It got better when they took our consciousness, but when it was physical, there would be a lot of glitches physically um, adjacent to the parallel we were in where they were doing the experiment. So that's just a little example. But I apologize. I cut you off. What?
No, no, no. The point here is that what's so difficult to do now for the viewers. I'm understanding it and I follow it, right. What we need to do is we need to break out of the story and we need to go into the parallels that you're talking about. Okay,
so
you're going to need.
You're forcing me to stay in that dark place, aren't you?
No. Let me explain to you. Dude. I'll explain to you.
Okay.
So I'm going to draw you away now, okay? And what you're going to understand is that the viewers are going to need to understand from you and I, and we're going to need to talk about this away from this story about what we're talking about, meaning parallels, okay? So you're going to need to give me a justification what your opinion formed of a parallel is, and then we're going to try and work together how we can give that into a reality for people that are listening to the story, right? So let's not talk about what happened. Let's come away from the dark and let's talk about this parallel, okay? So give me your justification first and I'll give you back what I feel as though it justifies it in my view.
Okay, well, from living right next to Camp Hero, living right above Brookhaven Lab, being surrounded by buildings with Delta T antennas. Right now, like literally right now, I could get up and walk, and I know locations here in Long Island. There's many of them, and I've been exploring them and researching them since the age of 14, getting very advanced. Being guides to Blood Mansion and King's Park, guiding people through parallel universes and parallel time, showing them the old technology and stuff. These abandoned buildings in King's Park, like if you look up King's Park Insane Asylum, that's where they sent the dysfunctional people. Let's just say the people that didn't quite fit the mold of the cloth. They'd send them to King's Park, and there's a morgue in King's Park because they would be there to die. So King's Park is a community in Long Island that the people that were experimented on in the Montauk project and the older projects pretty much went to die. And it's a huge neighborhood. Think about a huge city. Think about Manhattan just being abandoned. So this place is abandoned. There's Delta T antennas on every single building. There's stories every year about people going there to do graffiti and they just never show up again. And it's not that they get lost, it's that they find that they don't know parallel time. They get stuck in a parallel. And, you know, we have a lot of odd things happen in Long Island with people coming back looking like they were from the 17th century. Like we see a lot of odd things here, especially with the Manhattan Project, Philadelphia Project. But what intrigues me the most is Blood Mansion. On the Long Island Expressway, a major highway, there's a graveyard in Patchogue Town. And Patchogue's a relatively big neighborhood. I'm sorry for the noise. I got creaky stairs. Anyway, you can't see this cemetery. You can't see Lakeview at all. You could put it in Google Maps. It will not show up. But you drive around for a little bit and you park. The only place to park is a botanical, a voodoo shop, if you will. And from that point on, and this is almost every single time I go to visit Lakeview. This is not a paranormal thing. This is not a superstitious thing. This is not a fake thing. This is very real. This happens often, almost all the times, in all parallels. There will be a specific person. For Lakeview, it's a specific man pushing a shopping cart. He always has these like old engines from like the 1920s, and he's just walking down the street pushing them, and you ask him, where is Lakeview? All of a sudden he points, and in the middle of the bushes you see gates. Now once you open up those gates, there's a huge graveyard, and you could see the LI-8. You could see the highway, but you don't see a single car on it. And the Long Island Expressway has the most rush hour traffic in the United States. So being in that parallel to where you see this highway with the most rush hour in the United States completely empty, you see people stuck in this parallel too. I see the same spirits often. One of them is a tax collector, and he comes up to me, and always the same thing. He doesn't have his pen. He gives me his business card, but he doesn't have a pen to write down his number. And when I call the number on the business card, they answer the phone like they kind of know, but to make it more simple, look.
So what we're doing, as we said then, is so give me your justification of what you see as being a parallel for the watchers of Esoteric Disclosure and everything that's happening around what you're discussing with us when you're in this place, and you're saying that you're being put into parallels and then brought back into, and they're fuck ups where you're seeing things that you shouldn't have seen. I just want to try and get some more sort of concrete justification, explanation on what you mean by a parallel. This is, and there you go.
Yes. Now, I'm not an astrophysicist or a scientist, but I'll put it this way: parallel universes are almost like a copy of this one, like a same copy of this one, and the abandoned buildings you might see that are haunted, in a parallel they might not be abandoned. They might be operating and running. Well, I have witnessed this. I have been in parallel time. I have felt the effects of quantum leaping. I'm limited by words and language to explain what a parallel is to the viewers. But what I could say is, look at the multiverse. Even though that's a theory, you have a project that goes on in Montauk Point when they're discovering time travel, and yay, they finally did it in the 30s. But think about how many parallels they had to make before they got it right. Parallels are simply, if you have two trains on the same track going to the same destination, and I go on the roof of one train, and I jump on the roof of the other train. That technically, scientifically, is a parallel universe, because the train I was at, we're in the same destination, the same area, but I just leaped because now I'm in a different time space continuum with different people.
It's called a paradigm.
Yes, I'm not a scientist. I can't explain, the way Nikola Tesla or Albert Einstein could, but anybody could easily research. There's so many parallels in Long Island that investigators are dying to look through, and you've seen some of my videos on Facebook about this, but the only way I could really explain is through experiences I had, and
Good.
that's the best scenario I could give.
So I give you my parallel universes and my justification and explanation of that. So there are dimensional spaces, dimensions. In those dimensions, time doesn't exist. So the point about parallel universes is it isn't about time. So time doesn't exist. When you remove time from the equation, it's about space. The space you're in, specifically when you're in that space. And when you move away from that space, if you take time out of that equation, then you're in a different space. Now, now we've got a definition between a paradigm. So a paradigm is something where you can shift your paradigm, and there are theories that say there are multiple paradigms of everything happening all at once, all the time, and there can be a different version of you doing something different every second of the day, and every decision that you make. The decision that you make that was a positive or a negative or a yes or a no, there is another one of you making the yes or the no. And it happens as a continuation.
Yes.
And that vast amount of potential paradigms or parallels that exist in this universe, in this multiverse, right? And then I guess if you bring in then you need to bring in the holograph theory, and you need to look at the holograph theory in the way that time is manipulated and doesn't exist when if you're a hologram of your consciousness can travel to different, what we classify as time in and that is our past and our future, and that is just the basis of how your consciousness can travel in space.
Thank you. I can't explain that. So
I didn't do it very well. I'd like to give you something now, and this has never been disclosed to anybody before. I do a lot of astral traveling. So after you watch my story, and as viewers of Esoteric Disclosure, I've sent Starr part 2 and 3 of the release of part 1 of my death experience and coming back from my death experience. So Starr, you've watched that, right?
Very real. Yes.
So since then, so after part 3, Starr, what happened is it took me a long time to get back to even to being able to be here, because
yes,
I didn't want to be here, dude.
I understand. It's you told my story. I watched it. It's
yeah. And so what happened is that I'd done loads of bad shit in my life. I fucking experimented and just like completely tried to block everything by doing substances and traveling and meeting people and partying and DJing and just staying awake for 5 days and just like I don't care because it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. And slowly, time is caught back to me, and then I became conscious of the fact that I could do these things, right? So that now I draw it back. So I experiment regularly, and I've travelled through black holes. My astral body, I've travelled through black holes, and when you travel through I had to test. So you can project a projection of yourself. So when you astral project, you could see when you're astral project.
Astral projector myself,
Yeah.
but this needs to be explained. You're giving the Robert Bruce theory. I'm onto it. Yes.
Yeah.
Keep speaking. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's cool, dude. So you get this projection when you astral project. We know that our light body, when we project our light body, if we leave our if we don't need to project, our entire soul does not need to leave. We can project a projection of us, and we can travel with that projection. So to do that means that your soul still sits, but parts of your soul, a part of your charged light body is a reflection of you that can travel, that feeds back what you see. So you are living it, but your soul does not leave your body. So what that means is that as you know this, your soul is something that, if you are in another dimension and you fully commit to being in another, and we've talked about dimensional travel, and you said I believe you have done it, but I believe your constitution of what it is different to my constitution. And I think this is what's going to happen when we go through this story, is we're going to understand, and we're going to mix our stories and learn new things from each other when you explain and I explain things. So anyway, my fear is that through my teaching was that if you go into another dimension, you leave your carcass and your whole soul leaves, you cannot come back. But if you project a projection of your soul, you could go into a place, but your soul still sits here. So what I've done is I've been traveling around, and I found black holes when I've left Earth and gone and traveled, and I've gone through those black holes, and I see the world empty and reversed.
Now I got to ask you, these black holes, when you saw them, were they like ground level, like
It was like
like the top of a hurricane looking at it from the bottom, pretty much.
That's
okay.
Exactly right. And this is a portal, right? You're going to tell me that this is what you feel as though is what a portal is, and I believe that stars are portals. I believe the sun is a portal. I believe that the moon is a satellite that controls the earth, and I believe that black holes are actually portals. They're not actually black holes. And in those portals, when you go through them, you go into parallel universes. And when I've experimented with this shit, right, what I've done is first I projected my projection to go through, because I didn't want to put my whole self there, right? Because I was like, whoa, I need to know what happens first. And the first time, it sucked me in, man. And it kept sucking me and sucking me and sucking me. And then I released myself in, and I was there. And all of a sudden, this whole thing is the world empty, but everything is opposite. Nothing sits in the same.
Yes, you got like the opposite vision. I told you.
Polarized.
Yes.
Polar opposite of everything that you see is switched. So, dude. So this is parallel universes, and I think we get portals, parallel universes, dimensions. I think that there. Okay, so just to give one more classification before we go back to the story, there are also houses and dimensions are different to parallel universes. Dimensions are actually physical, alternative, real places. They're not parallels. They exist outside of this world.
Yes, thank you. That's what is most relevant to be said. And I wish I would have said it, and I thank you for saying it, because it's real.
What's your belief of ascension?
See, belief is a word that I really try not to get into with my vocabulary, because with ascension, I I like the motion and the experience, and the experience I have is more real than a belief. So I
Experience is
can't.
a great. Okay, the reason I said belief is because what we do is we form an opinion, and that opinion forms our belief system. So what happens is that we cannot allow ourselves to be completely consumed by our belief.
Exact.
and,
Yes.
and in this situation, the way that I determine that is to not 100% believe in anything, because you hold back that 10%, but you create a belief system, and that belief system becomes your experience, right? So
Yes.
that's the reason I used it, and you're right to say that, because what you're saying is if I say I believe it, it means I'm consumed by it. And that's the reason that you're saying it's more of an experience to me than a belief, right? And I'm just giving you the switch of my justification behind the reason I use the word belief. So tell me your experience of
Thank you.
ascension.
Um. Wow. This is a odd story, but I had my dark times too. I I was in county jail here in New York. Not the best one, but let's just get to Ascension. I saw a book somebody had, an orange book called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And I I have a very weird upbringing. I was raised by a family that were all Vodun initiates from their country of Puerto Rico, but then got terrified and became very strong born again Christians. So when I read that book, it just removed all of that. It removed all beliefs. It's when I completely erased everything